Happy Saturday to you. Hope you are having a great Saturday and an amazing weekend so far. My name is Don Terrell, and as always, I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion. I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades, and I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that, I love so much. Again, like I said, I want to welcome you. As always, I thank you for giving me a little bit of your time, on this Saturday afternoon and joining us. You know the drill. Hop into the comments, say hey, where you're tuning in from, so that I can give you the shout out that, you so richly deserve. Mr. DeMille, happy Saturday to you there, brother. Appreciate you as always tuning in and checking out the show for sure. Like I said, we are here every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live on the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, the Facebook group, and the website for the show. You can always check out the episodes live there. But as always, I always encourage everybody to kind of hop on over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification, comment, because that always helps the algorithm, at youtube.com/Don Terrell, for sure. Also, make sure that you get plugged into the Facebook group community, facebook.com/groups/The Color of Motion. Get plugged in. We share a lot of industry news, have a lot of fun conversations, and definitely don't want you to miss out on anything. So if you are into this space, make sure that you get plugged in to the group as well. You're able to connect with a lot of talented people there. And like I said, get a lot of industry news as well if you're looking to get into the industry. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/The Color of Motion. We definitely like to connect with you there as well, for sure. Man, I hope you are super excited about this episode. I want to thank you for joining me for this last episode of the first quarter. It's been a great first quarter. Definitely had some amazing guests on it, but definitely want to thank you for, joining us on this last episode before we take a little short hiatus there. Also, make sure that you stop by the store. The store is open. Pick you up some great swag items there. We have a lot of great things in the store, shirts, hoodies, mugs. And like I said, we're always putting things into the shop there. Definitely, if there's something that you want to see in the store, you can definitely shoot me a message and I'll work to get it in there for sure. My goal is to always get as many people as possible in Color of Motion gear and swag. My only request is if you do pick you up something, make sure you snap a picture of yourself, send it on over to us so that we can share it with the community. Give you a big shout out as well. Again, like I said, thank you so much for tuning in. Want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor of the show, Gaines Con Film Festival. They will be going on July 11th and 12th. Definitely looking forward to it myself because I plan on doing a special kind of live stream from the event there in Las Vegas, Nevada. Yeah, I love Las Vegas. I always have a lot of fun when I go to Las Vegas. And Gaines Con is a great independent sci-fi and horror film festival that's been put on by Barry Gaines. So definitely looking forward to being a part of it this year as well. So, man, like I said, super excited about this, kicking off this episode. Like I said, always, feel a little certain way when we get ready to go on a hiatus there, but definitely during the hiatus, I'm going to be trying to fill you with as much, color and motion content as I can. But it's always a good thing to take a little bit of break there, plan out some stuff. Like I said, during that time, I'm going to be trying to, work out the Instagram thing. Maybe come next quarter, we'll be doing Instagram live there as well. So, you just never know. Just never know. All right. Well, like I said, I am super excited about this episode. Been looking forward to sitting down and talking with my next guest. Super, super talented artist for sure. So, I think without further ado, we can kind of get this, show kind of kicked off here. What do you say? Yeah. We are back. And ready to get this episode kicked off. Miss Maggie, appreciate you tuning in as always. Good afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great Saturday. Yeah, DeMille, this time what happens in Vegas has to be shared. So I'm looking forward to, I'm a sci-fi kind of horror film buff. And definitely a lover of independent creators as well. So I'm looking forward to it. Myself. So definitely as time gets closer, we're going to be pushing it more and more. So definitely make sure that, like I said, you tune in when we do that special live there. Mr. Antoine, what's going on, my brother? How are you? It's great. Hope it has been a long time. I'm pretty sure you've been busy as well, but appreciate you tuning in and stopping by the show as always. Definitely looking forward to getting you back on, brother. Without further ado, man, I think we can, like I said, get this one kind of kicked off and moving. My next guest comes from Ibadan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm going to have to ask him when he jumps on. Ibadan, Nigeria. Currently, he resides and works in Lagos, Nigeria, and is a CG artist specializing in creating 3D models for film, animation, and games. He's been honing his skills in this field for 5 years now and currently employed at Anthill Studio. From a very young age, he's been a highly imaginative and creative person, taking after his dad in these traits. His dad constructed toys for him to play with, igniting his passion for creating and designing from an early age. In junior school, he consistently excelled in creative art, which he further studied, solidified his desire to pursue a career in the creative field. His journey as a CG artist has been incredibly fulfilling, but he's not stopping there. His aim is to create even more awe-inspiring content in the entertainment industry. He wants his work to resonate with people, leaving a lasting impact on their hearts and fostering connections with individuals from different walks of life, both at home and abroad. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Mr. Davies. David, super excited. Thank you, thank you, thank you for
It,
joining us, man. I've been looking forward to this episode ever since we connected. Like I said, I instantly fell in love with your work and knew I had to have you on the show, brother. So thank you so much for joining us. I know it's incredibly, incredibly late over in Lagos. So I,
yeah.
al- I always appreciate my African brothers and sisters for coming on live because I know how late it is over there when they do join. So thank you so much, brother, for joining us today, man.
Yeah, it's really incredible to be here. Very, very awesome. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on your live show today.
Thank you,
It's really,
thank you.
really great. And
Now,
I must say for one that the introductory soundtrack was really good.
well, thank you,
It
thank
kind
you.
of
Like
got
I
me
said,
really good. Yeah.
we always try to make our guests feel like the superstars that they are. So, like I said, it was definitely well deserved. And like I said, I've been looking forward to diving into this conversation with you. It really getting into your journey in the industry, as short as it is. Like you said, 5 years now. You're still relatively new in the industry, but you're making some big waves and doing some great work. Um, I want to ask you because it said in your bio, your dad kind of constructed your toys as you were growing up. How did that kind of really make an impact on you, seeing your dad really, go above and beyond just building you toys?
Oh boy.
Oh, his camera
Is this
froze
still
there.
connected?
Your camera froze. I don't know if you can hear me. Let's see if we can uh, log out and get you back on. Can you hear me, David? We're gonna log him out and get him back on. Let's see if we can do that there. Uh, 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 uh. Oh, is he there? Are you there, David? He logged out. We're gonna get him back on in a second here. Kind of the you know technical difficulties, like I like to say. It always kind of happens sometimes, and you just learn to roll with it. He should be back on. Yep, there he is, right there. Let's see if we can get him back on. Right. Let's see if we can get him back on here. There he is.
Yes,
All
I'm
right.
back. I'm back. I'm back. I think the
uh,
network really made a mess there.
hey, like I said, I tell people this all the
Yeah,
time. What happens live happens live. You just kind of have to go with it. So, appreciate you hanging in
exactly.
there for sure. But my question was, how did your dad's constructing your toys, really impact you growing up? Seeing him go above and beyond what, a lot of parents will do with just building you your toys.
Yeah. First off, I need to say this, that I came from a pretty humble background, right? So I really did not have opportunities to see a lot of things growing up as a kid, right? So, you know, as kids, you'd expect your parents to get you toys, things to play with, take you out to see shows, see a lot of movies and all that. But growing up, I really didn't have opportunities to see those kind of things or get that kind of, you know, advantage and all those things. So my dad is a carpenter. He was a carpenter rather. Then he also did a bit of other artworks. He used to be a painter,
Yeah.
painted houses. He did the traditional, he did traditional graphics design. It wasn't during those times where there was much of computers and all that. So he did a lot of all the traditional designs. And anytime he comes back home and has a lot of work to do, he does most of his works at home and delivers it out there to people. So anytime he does that, I stay with him most of the time in his workshop. And, gradually from there, I kept seeing the reason why I would want to do something like this. So most times, anytime I go to school, uh, they call it primary school here. So anytime I go to primary school, I see a lot of my friends with toys, with, a lot of comics and all that. And I feel like, man, I'm missing on a lot of things, and these are things, and these are things that my parent couldn't really provide for me, right? So most times then, anytime I get home, I'm always talking to them, wanting to get something of my own. And there was this day I just went to school and, just in school, all that. Then I came back home and all of a sudden I found a wooden doll waiting for me. My dad had crafted that, and immediately I saw that it was one of like the best times of my life because then wooden dolls are not really common.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I had seen a wooden doll at all then.
It's
So
been a while for me
it was
too.
so it was pretty interesting. I was just left, I was really surprised and I kind of fascinated me. I got fascinated and I felt like this is something I want to do. Then I was pretty young, so I really didn't know anything that was called career or job. I just knew I wanted to do something like this. I wanted to be able to craft things out of, nothing and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously since your dad did this for you, he was really, I guess, encouraging of your creative talent. And kind of you going into this kind of space of graphic design and then 3D and what you're doing now. I know a lot of parents, they're kind of skeptical of the creative space, thinking that you can
Yeah.
make an actual living doing it. But
Yeah,
and some
exactly.
kind of sway you to go one way, a different way or that. But obviously, did your dad really encourage you and kind of help foster your creative side, so to speak, and really wasn't kind of pushing you in one direction or another, a more stable, let's say, you know, career.
Yeah, the thing is, like I said, all this happened while I was a kid,
Yeah,
right? And then, like, it's normal of kids to have things to play with. Every kid has at that time where they had toys, things to play with, things to relate to, right? Now, after then, it was just a kid thing. It felt like, he's a kid, let him have something to play with. But growing up, I just had that feeling in my mind that this was what I wanted to do. So when it got to a point where I needed to start making decisions, making career decisions, at first, not at first, I wanted to study law in school,
oh, okay.
right? Yeah, I wanted to study law in school. I had already put in for the exams. I'd done the exams already. I'd passed the exams, and I was just waiting for my letter to get to school. Right.
Yeah,
I just wanted to resume to school. Then all of a sudden, because then it was a time where parents always just wanted their kids to go to school and study something. They wanted them to become a lawyer. If not a lawyer, they wanted them to be a doctor
yeah,
or a nurse, things like that.
yeah. Something that would make you some money
So,
for for a living.
ye- yeah, something like that. So it was during that time, and I had to go to school, and I wrote the exams already. I passed. I was expecting my letter to resume in school. Then all of a sudden, I just woke up and I felt like this was not something I was supposed to do. I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Well, I think it's a good thing that you figured that out before you got too deep into it, and then decided,
Really,
that this was
really,
not
like,
what you wanted to do.
it was the most dramatic and the most serious time of my life because it felt like I'm just waking up into to this reality right now, and this has to be done. So I just woke up that day and said to myself, I'm not supposed to do this. I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. So I walked up to my mom first and I told her, I said, Mom, you know what?
I kind of already
I
know where
said,
this is
Mom.
maybe going.
No, it was pretty serious. It was pretty serious. I just woke up to my mom and told her this was about, say, nine, this was about, no, this was about 8 years ago. So I told my mom, I said, Mom, you know what? I don't want to study law anymore. You know, and a typical, a typical African mother, you know, that particular day, it felt like my world was about to crumble because hell broke loose that day.
Oh, wow.
I felt like this is not my mom.
She went totally in the opposite direction. Oh, my. So, how long did it take uh, for your, well, I don't know. Did your dad have a different kind of reaction when you told him that you didn't really want to do law? I mean, since he was kind of maybe more creative or at least kind of understood just the creative process of doing things, did he have a different reaction
Yeah.
than your mom?
My dad had a somewhat similar reaction to about that, just somewhat similar. Uh, but later on, because my dad always, right from time, he had always been someone that trusted most of my decision-making processes.
Yeah.
So most times, at that particular time, after I told him to, I thought he kind of he revolted against it, right? But
Yeah.
later on, just felt like, is that what you want? He said, is that what you want? I said, yes, yes, that's exactly what I want. I don't want to study law anymore. Even though I've passed the exams already, I don't want to study law. I just want to do fine art. I just want to go to school, study fine art, and
Mm-hmm.
become an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, okay, no problem. I support you.
Okay. Now, how long did it take for your
Yeah.
mom to kind of come back, or to finally kind of, okay, this is what you want to do, um, just give it your all. How long did it take for her to get, okay with it?
Uh, my mom, I think it took my mom about 3, 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'd already gone to school, I'd entered school already. And mind you, after that decision I made, I told you I already wrote the exams for law,
Yeah.
right? And I'd passed. So after that decision I made, I had to stay at home again for about 3 years before I finally got another admission.
Yeah.
Right. So it took my mom and close to 3 years after then before she, finally agreed to me doing fine art.
Oh, wow. Jeez. That's like I said.
Yeah. And that was because I think I participated in a competition,
Yeah.
right? Although I didn't win. I didn't win at first, but when my mom saw the potential of being an artist and she saw the prizes actually. She saw the
Yeah.
prizes that wanted to be given, and she felt like, okay, if people would be willing to pay this kind of amount of money for art,
Yeah.
then I think it's worth doing.
Okay.
So after then, she started getting,
That's always helpful to have your parents behind you, like I said. But I don't think they're react. Well, maybe a little extreme, but typically, like I said, most parents, unless they're creative or artists themselves, my mom was like that too. She didn't discourage, but she didn't quite understand how you can make a living doing it. So it's like, okay, well, you might want to think about you know studying something else, to give you
Yeah.
a leg up. Did you have?
A
I
lot of
mean,
parents say, okay.
yeah, I mean, parents are pretty much the same wherever you go. Did you have
Yeah.
a circle of friends when you were kind of at this point that were also in art? I mean, were there other people around you, other kids and around you that were kind of interested in the same things that you were interested in?
At the point where I was trying to make that decision, the decision to be an artist, uh, physically, around me, I really didn't have those kinds of friends,
Yeah,
right? I really didn't have, I did not have that circle of friends physically around me. And, I had to go online. So most of my circle of friends, of support group, that's what I
yeah,
like to call them. Most of my support group were mostly online. So I
yeah,
saw a lot of them online and I connected with them. And after then, it kind of became easier for me to transition from into that world of art because then I had more, way experienced people as well as, you know, older friends
yeah,
and that could relate with, that could tell me their experience and how to navigate the art life and all that.
yeah, yeah.
So
S-
mostly my circle of friends were mostly online.
online, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess that I'm pretty sure that was, well, not hard, but some friends, like I said, some school kids that you play with and just hang around with friends that aren't necessarily kind of in that space. They can make it either good or bad for you depending on the type of friends that you had. You said you wanted to study fine art. So when did
Yeah.
you make that shift from fine arts to graphic design, and then from graphic design into 3D? Was it a gradual process, or did you get into fine arts and say, well, I love art, but fine arts isn't necessarily kind of the thing that I like. I really kind of like graphic design, and then move to that.
Yeah, my transition into 3D at the end of the day was a lot.
Well, I
It
want to
was
dive into
really a
that.
lot.
Yeah, I want to dive into that
Yeah.
because, like I said, I got my degree is in graphic design and traditional drawing and design, um, but it wasn't
Mm.
like you know a, a a big major leap for me when I started learning and discovering 3D. What do you mean when it was a challenge for you? What was the big thing for you when you moved from what you originally started into 3D?
Yeah. Thing is, while I was starting out, while I was growing rather, I I used to get really fascinated by bigger studios, like a lot of bigger studios. Then I didn't know them as studios. I just knew that this particular company produced this kind of movie. So I really just wanted to do stuff like that. I wanted to really do things that were going to be showing on, bigger screens, on platforms,
Yeah,
a lot of them like that. So I didn't know how to get there. You know, the only thing I knew was filmmaking. These people were filmmakers, whether 3D or 2D, they were just filmmakers. So I felt this is something I want to do, right? And after high school, after high school, uh, there's this tradition. I don't know if it exists over there, but there's this tradition in Nigeria or maybe Africa at large. that once a child finishes high school, it is, important. Most African parents believe in that really. That it is important for the child to have a vocational skill,
Mm,
right? They call it hand job here,
yeah.
right? So it's important for the child to have a vocational skill, right? So when I was making that decision to learn something after school, I felt, you know, I don't want to go and learn how to draw because I think it's something I have always been good at, drawing. So I wanted to go a bit more into the digital space, right? And there was no other way to start than learning from the scratch, which is graphics design, learning the basics of graphics, um, basics of colors, line shapes, and all that. I felt like that was the best place to start for me. So I started as a graphics designer after high school. Then from there, while I was learning graphics design and all that, funny enough, learning graphics design was majorly a self-willed thing because there's always a level to which your instructors will teach you and will expect you to go back home and learn
Yeah.
on your own. So for me, while I was learning graphics design, I felt like I wanted to do more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to further this thing. And from there, I started learning illustration,
Okay.
basic illustration. I started learning how to draw on a computer. Not necessarily. I didn't have a graphics tab or anything then. I just used my mouse.
Oh wow. And any artist that's out there knows the mouse is not a good thing to draw. Not really the greatest thing to draw, but hey, you use
No.
what you got until things get better, for sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
So
that's a hard thing to do.
yeah, so I just started using my mouse to just illustrate things, and from there, I kept doing it. I transitioned into drawing on my sketchpad and tracing on and digitally, then painting with my mouse, and I did that for a while. Then from there, I wanted to move forward,
Yeah,
right? So I just felt it would have been better if I had a formal training in graphics design,
yeah,
right? So, and that was one of the reasons that was one of the things that brought me to Lagos at first. I came to Lagos, saw this school, this graphics design school in Lagos, and I felt, let me just start something, even if it's not really, really great as such. Let me just start something and move forward. That was when I started the formal training in graphics design. I did that for close to a year, and from there, I transitioned by myself. I wanted to learn 3D in that same school, but I had to leave due to some, one or two reasons. So I had to
yeah.
leave there and came back to my home state. And from there, I started learning 3D because at some point in my graphics design journey, you know, like I said, it's a lot. My transition is a lot. So I can't really say it was at this point I started having interest in it. It was gradual. It was a gradual process for me. And, I might start learning graphics design to a point, and I just feel like, you know what, I feel like I want to just do more. Right. Then I go into illustration. Then from there, I feel like I don't think this is where I want to be right now. Let me move further.
It constantly changes.
So yeah. So I felt like let me just go further. I think there is a lot more things to do outside this. So from there I started doing 3D. I
uh,
started doing 3D. Meanwhile, before then I had already started doing graphics design professionally. I started getting jobs,
yeah,
started doing a lot of, you know,
yeah,
contract
yeah.
works and all that. So from there, I just felt, let me just start doing 3D, you know, and
So
My
was your
3D starting, okay,
no, I was gonna
starting
say
my
so.
3D for me was starting my 3D for me was solely self-taught,
Yeah, I was
right?
just getting
I
ready to
just
ask you that. Was your
okay,
3D
okay.
self-taught, or did you go to schooling or take courses for your 3D? So, what did you, as far as software, what did you start on in 3D when you started really getting into software? And was the challenge of or maybe did you already have a powerful enough machine because 3D is a little more intensive than graphic design is. um, the challenge, what software did you kind of start learning on, and then was it a challenge getting you know the equipment that would allow you to really dive in and learn 3D and really get better at 3D?
Yeah, my 3D software, the one I started with was Blender.
Okay.
And I feel that's the software everybody starts with.
Yeah, yeah, it's free, and it's a great piece of software. I'm learning it now.
Yeah.
I'm getting better, trying to learn it and get better at it myself. It's a great piece of software that's free, that most people.
Yes. Yeah, so I started with Blender, and that was because my software was, I mean, my PC at that time was a potato PC. Yeah, it was really a potato PC. I had a I had a 4 gig RAM PC. I think that was the first one I used was a HP. I'm forgetting the model, but
Yeah.
it's a HP computer. It had no, it had 2 gigs of RAM and 256 gig
Hard drive.
HDD hard drive. So it was pretty slow. It was really, really, really slow. It was really slow, and it had about I think I think it was an octa-core PC. So it
Oh,
was really, really slow. So I started with Blender and I started doing a lot of modeling. And there's this particular YouTuber that really, really helped me. His name is Grant Habit.
okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's Grant Habit on YouTube. So he really, really helped me a lot. And I think I got one of his courses too. That was way after I started.
awesome. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
everybody, like I said, we're having an amazing conversation. Mr. Franklin Fache, I hope I pronounced that right. Please forgive me if I didn't. David Davis, my guy. Appreciate you tuning in for sure. Gideon, appreciate you tuning in. Almost everyone was in that shoe. That yeah, I guess as far as trying to get into the industry and kind of get into the space. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about again. Uh, Mr. Antoine, I know what you're commenting on. Here we go again. Hey, technical difficulties always happen, Antoine. That's just, like I said, that's the nature of live. What can I say? What can I say? Uh, yeah, you pronounced it. Okay, I appreciate that, Franklin. I pronounced it well. Uh, Jeff, my brother from another mother. Aloha, brother. Aloha. I appreciate you stopping by. Um, for you, how do you, obviously Lagos has kind of a thriving. I've had a number of guests that are from there. Um, Obviously, the community is kind of growing there. They have a school
Yeah.
there, for graphic design, and I don't know if they have anything there for like 3D or animation, but you're starting to see now this big rise with creators from Africa and content from Africa starting to really get, I guess, popular over here, you know. But are you starting to see a big growth in the industry over there? Um, in what you do?
Yes. To a to a great extent, compared to what we had, some years back. It's a great improvement. It's a great improvement. You have the rise of newer studios, a lot of indie creators, indie content creators. So it's really a great improvement when you ask me. Compared to say 5, 6 years ago,
Mm,
it has really, really improved in Nigeria. In
yeah.
Nigeria, just Nigeria. Yeah. And I feel like it's a struggle, when you think about it. It's a big struggle in Nigeria because a lot of people are a lot of people have interest in doing this thing,
Okay.
right? A lot of people are interested in doing it. Of course, you have people that want to do it for the money, but there are a lot of people that are really passionate about doing these things in Nigeria. But in situation where you have a lot more passionate people than the avenue to showcase their passion and to, exhibit their passions, it's going to be very difficult to thrive
Yeah.
in that kind of situation. Yeah, so that has just been the issue. There's been a lot of improvements, a lot of studios, a lot
Yeah.
of creators, for a while now. Yeah.
So, what do you feel like the biggest thing um, that's going to need to be kind of overcome? I mean, it's obviously it's different over here in the states. We've got a lot of a lot of studios, a lot of schools, government kind of funding in certain areas, and this and that. What do you see as kind of the biggest challenge that Africa is kind of facing to take it up to even an even bigger level?
Yeah, there are lots of challenges, to be
Pick
honest.
pick
There are
one.
lots of
Pick like
okay.
your kind of top one that you see is kind of the biggest thing that Africa kind of needs to put in place to really make an impact. Obviously, like I said, with bigger studios over here starting to go over there and partner with studios is really kind of helping it. But what do you that one thing that you would say, okay, we need to really work on this to really kind of open up the industry even more?
Uh, yeah, I'm really fighting hard to pick one here. I'm thinking, but let me start this way. Uh, Nigeria is not really known for this kind of content,
Yeah,
right? So it's a new development in this space, right? So, and one thing about content creation is if it is new, people are kind of, they're quick to revolt against it if it is new, if it's
yeah,
something new. And I think that's one of the problems, the key problem, the core problems you're facing in Nigeria here right now, because people don't really see the need in to invest or yeah, to invest in this kind of content creation,
yeah.
right? And that's a major problem because one thing people do is they will tell you why do a grown person like me need to watch animation? Trust me.
I don't know if that's a sad
They
commentary on us over here in the States or
no,
what, but we love animation.
no, it's because like I said, this is not it's
Yeah,
not a typical kind of content people are used to in this
yeah,
part of the world, right? People are used to the normal filmmaking, just making films, right?
yeah,
But people would go as far as call you wasting your time creating cartoons,
yeah.
whether 3D, 2D, they'll tell you everything is a cartoon. So you're making cartoon and cartoon is for kids. So why you you're a grown-ass man creating things for kids. So kids are
Oh
supposed to be
man,
doing this. So I
I kind
feel,
of get it, but yeah.
yeah,
Well, I
it's
mean, like I said,
a lot.
it, obviously that's kind of starting to change now that you're seeing, like I said, Kugali come out, and you're seeing these creators now start to tell stories that are more, like I said, kind of indicative of the continent there. Do you think that's helping as well now that they're starting to see a lot more projects come out from studios and creators?
Yes, yes. That's why I said it has really improved over the years. And so right now there are studios, studios Kugali and a lot of other studios in Nigeria that are really, really doing well, right? And this has, you know, introduced the concept of this kind of content to people. Now people are accepting it a lot more in this part of the world, right? And I think right now the another problem, another major issue right now is the need to create more content, right? It's the need to create more content. And I feel if we are going to do that in such a way that we will be accepted worldwide or in other parts of the world, it is something we need to do well, right? So
Mm,
the issue of being able to do things well now is a big problem,
mm, mm,
which I think is one of the major problems in the African animation, no, let me say Nigerian animation creation space.
yeah.
Uh, do you understand me? So the ability to do things well now, not to just rush things, not to just do things because we want to put things out there, but to actually do things well. Take for instance, you see a Disney animation in 1999 or
Yeah.
1998, and you see it now and you still want to watch it, right? It's because they really put in a lot of effort and they actually do things like that well. So I feel now that the industry, the animation industry or the CG industry in Nigeria is really moving and moving well. It is something we want to sit back, think about how to really produce more content and produce them well, right?
Right.
And I feel another thing that is really lacking, that is really drawing us back in this industry in Nigeria is, or let me say Africa, but yeah, Africa is the collaboration issue. You know,
And
the
when you
need
say that,
to
do you mean
okay.
collaboration with creators and studios within Africa, or collaboration with studios outside of Africa?
I think if we're going to move outside of Africa, if we're going to be accepted by people outside of Africa, there has to be a there has to be an image we project to people outside there, right? If somebody from outside Africa would want to collaborate with me on a project, he has to be able to see that people in Africa are collaborating on things and are bringing out really awesome stuffs out of it, right? That would furthermore foster people outside Africa to come in, invest, and collaborate with people inside Africa. So I think this thing starts from the base, which is Africa itself. We are really not seeing studios doing a lot of collaborations. It's a lot of, we have a lot of, I want to do this, my studio wants to do this, I want to be the only one to do this,
Yeah.
and it's a big problem. It's a really, really big problem in Nigeria, in
Right.
Africa. So I feel if it's a thing where African studios come together, collaborate on projects, create awesome stuffs, trust me, people outside Africa would want to, jump on
Yeah.
awesome stuffs because who doesn't like awesome stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody loves awesomeness. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you feel like that's kind of uh, the thing of maybe working with studios outside the country because you're wanting, or outside the continent because African creators are wanting to tell kind of stories that maybe other, continents and other places haven't really don't really understand the kind of nuances or things that, you know, may be kind of indicative for just the continent of Africa? Or do you feel like it's just, one, obviously, stories are universal. We all feel the same things. We all love and laugh and, kind of like the same things.
Mm,
But those little small nuances of things that maybe only you, as a African, would pick up that may not necessarily translate outside of, Africa.
okay. Let me start. Let me answer the question this way. We don't really have a lot of studios, a lot of animation studios in Africa,
Yeah,
right? Like say in Nigeria now we have about say 5, 6 studios, like major studios
yeah,
in Nigeria, right? And I don't really know the statistics in other African countries, but I feel like it's something that is below a certain kind of number. So we don't really have a lot of studios in Africa, right? And people, creators, artists that are in Nigeria, you know, we we want to really do a lot of awesome stuff, right? And I told you this kind of industry in Africa, in Nigeria, and all that. In as much as we are really growing, we are still pretty low,
yeah,
right? In as much as we've grown, we've grown to a certain level, to a certain extent, we're still pretty low on a lot of things. Right? We're still pretty behind on a lot of things. So an artist that is starting out, that wants to make a career out of art, CG, VFX, all those things, an artist that is starting out like that in Africa, right, would want to make a living out of it. And with the way things are going now, a lot of studios in Africa are not will not be able to pay an average artist
yeah,
to do certain work. So there's a lot of underpayment going on in Africa. So artists like that who have owned their skills for a long time, who have always constantly improved themselves on their skills and all that, would want to go further, would want to, work for other studios outside the country, outside the continent, that will be able to really pay them, you know, the amount of money that is, fair enough,
yeah,
right? So in that kind of situation, there is I'd like to call it a brain drain, in the African animation content creation space. So there's a bit of brain drain where really talented artists, really talented, creatives are looking for jobs outside the continent in places where they can, give their input creatively and at the same time get uh, remunerations that are fair enough for them to live with, right? So in that case, a lot of African studios are left with people that are maybe, in some ways just starting out, or people that have not gotten the opportunity to work with studios outside the continent.
yeah,
So I think it's the thing where there has to be a lot more awareness and, you know, getting creatives. Trust me, there's nothing wrong with creatives working outside the continent.
yeah,
That's totally fine. It's a lot. It is something that is encouraged and something that would foster a lot of collaboration and collaborative work. Let's say me as an African creative work with a studio outside the continent, there could be a thing where I bring my own story, I bring the African story and, introduce it to the studio where I work, and these people have the equipment, they have everything. Why not? Let's just collaborate on something. Let's do something awesome,
yeah,
and things like that would further improve the way stories are being told to people
Yeah.
around the world. So I feel it's not just something, it's not just about, working on stories, working on, creating content. It's about how people in Africa, how studios in Africa can hold, can hold creatives and can, you know, accommodate them
Yeah.
as much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
A big quote my brother Jeff here, Mr. Merghart. He is a character designer over at Disney. The guys from Kugala are pumping animation up over there, definitely for sure. And he actually worked with them on Iwaju. I forgive me, guys,
Yeah,
if I'm mis
Iwaju.
Iwaju, which
Yeah.
is an amazing animation. And for better or for good or for bad, do you feel like having this comparison to say a Disney style, Disney quality animation, or there's a lot of studios out there, Warner Brothers, Sony, having this kind of comparison of the quality of work is a good or bad thing? Obviously, you're always looking to kind of gauge, what you're creating with the best out there. But do you feel like that's kind of a thing that's put on animation outside of the U.S., in particular, the continent of Africa, having this kind of, okay, they need to be of this certain quality, um, style work for it to really be worth partnering with, working with the studio or that?
The, to an extent, well, let me say directly no, right? We don't need to make that kind of comparison because Warner Brothers, studios like Disney, studios like Marvel have been, they've been established for a very long time,
Yeah,
right? So it won't be fair to give that kind of comparison to other African, studios and all. But there is a thing where you can gauge your quality, right? Not necessarily put them side by side, but just
yeah,
gauge, right?
yeah,
I had this friend while I was learning the process of drawing and all that. I had this friend that would tell me that once I finish studying, anatomy, shapes and all that, once I finish all those things, I should put it side by side other artists, other, established artists, not necessarily to be as good as them, right? But there are certain things that those people put in place in their work, maybe painting, models, drawings, sketches and all that. There are certain things they put in place that you need to look out for, right? Say you don't necessarily need to copy their style. You don't necessarily need to uh, do things the way they did theirs. But take for instance, story,
yeah,
right? If you're going to be doing stories, making animations, one thing for sure that has to be spot on is story, right? Now you're putting your own story as an African, independent creative or an African studio. You're putting your story side by side Disney's story, not because you want to copy their scope of storytelling or because you want to copy their scope of storytelling or you want to copy their style of storytelling. You don't necessarily want to do that. You want to be able to see whether the quality is or whether certain things they are putting in their story can be found in yours too, right? Because trust me, good or bad stories, people know,
yeah,
right? People know when it's a good story, people know when it's a bad story. And also, yeah, I don't know whether you would agree with me on this, like the way. story plays in your head is not, it might not be the same way it translates when you make it into content,
Yeah.
right? So when you do that, you just want to be able to be sure of whether you're on the right track, right? Like
Yeah.
say you want to tell, let's say you want to tell a story of a particular tribe in Africa, and you look for other stories, other stories that are made by other Western studios, and put it side by side. Okay, these people in their story, they captured family. How do we capture family in such a way that it kind of resonates with people that, or the audience that is watching this, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are the things that are really, really matter when we want to compare, not necessarily about how to, not necessarily judging your own content by their own content. Because trust me, like I said earlier, as much as studios or animation content creation in Nigeria and Africa at large has improved over time, we're still far back in a lot of places. So it's baby steps, like I like to call it. So it's a thing where we move from, take one step at a time while still looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
Yeah, that's what I think.
and I wholeheartedly agree that it at the base of it is the story, and there are
Yeah,
like basic frameworks to storytelling. This kind of hero's journey of learning
yeah,
and succeeding, having a setback, having a mentor, having somebody really. At the end of the movie, you get to your in journey there. We're gonna throw some comments up in here because we're getting a flood of them for sure. Miss Deborah, Black woman animator, appreciate you stopping by there. The sentiment of animation being for kids exists in the States. Yeah, it does to a certain degree. It does. I think it's a lot different though because we've been doing animation in this in the States for so long. I think it's definitely a lot further along than a lot of other places for sure. Uh, People don't know the history of animation and how it was originally for adults. Yeah, it is. And like I said, I think it's even in the simplest of animations that you might think are for kids. Like when I go back now and watch like old Looney Tunes animations, they had some pretty adult, kind of adult themes and topics in there. I'm like, wow, I can't believe this was on TV for kids. So
yeah,
yeah, it's definitely a medium that's evolved over time. But obviously, here in the States with Disney, like I said, especially Disney, because they've been doing it since the '60s and '50s. Um, it's a little different for sure. Mr. Franklin, oh, don't get me started on the collaboration issue. I hope it's getting better, not just within, and I feel like it is outside. I think studios now, especially with, like I said, bigger studios like Disney starting to partner and really bring, more diverse creators, more diverse stories out there. I think it's starting to get better on that front. I don't know necessarily how it is, working within the continent, studios working within and together with each other, how that would be. But my hope is that it would, obviously get better. That's my hope here as well, that more studios start to work together here in the States as well. It should only be about the work and artistic capabilities. Miss Robbie, appreciate you. Anything else is unacceptable. Yeah. But then, like I said, for most studios, especially the big ones, obviously their bottom line and what they're thinking is, dollars. As far as the kind of more higher executives, their bottom thing is, will it make money? You know, and
yeah,
will it sell outside of the general audience that is going to be watching it? I think that was their big thing. I think that was Marvel's big thing that kind of hesitated them with Black Panther. They were worried, is the audience going to be bigger in other places, which they were surprisingly, surprised that it was. But their thing is it going to resonate outside of wherever it is that they're creating it? Because again, the bottom line for them is, will it make money? So you would hope that it is about the work and artistic, and that's what it should be about: the story, the work, the artistic capabilities within it. But we know over here that, like I said, it could be the greatest film, it could be the greatest animation, but if the studio doesn't think it's going to make money, they may not, you know, put money into it, for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
sorry, let me chip in something there. Yeah, in as much as the studios are trying to make money, right? I think that is one of the major reasons why they are trying to explore all the, cultures to tell their stories, right? Take for instance this new Iwaju that just came out, that's
yeah,
coming out soon by Disney and other African studios. It's a way of uh, increasing their stretch,
yeah,
stretching
their
their
reach. Yeah,
storytelling pace, their reach rather. Thank you. So it's a way of stretching their reach and, exploring other cultures and other cultures' story, other cultures' tradition, That way, people want to always see new things. And if it's not new, they want to see something that's different from something you've always done, right? And I feel that's one way to capture that's one way people to capture the audience, capture those that you want to tell the story to. And if you're exploring new traditions, exploring new cultures, I think it's a pretty good way to tell more stories.
yeah, yeah, and definitely, like I said, there's so many different stories out there, and I think you know, obviously, here there was we've kind of gotten, people are wanting more stories. I mean, we've got told a certain story for so long. I think people are in this space now where they're craving different kinds of stories, different experiencing different things, and seeing how other people live and deal with love, hurt, and all the other emotions that we all share, but just told in a different way than what we've always kind of been used to. Like I said, Disney's been around for ages and ages and ages. And like I said, it's a great thing now. Like I said, they're stretching themselves to really tell different kinds of stories from a different perspective than what they've normally told. And that's nothing negative against Disney or anything like that. That's just the way their structure was for the longest. They told a certain type of story. But now people are wanting and craving just more creative stories, more different stories. You're starting to see a lot more different kinds of creators come up and want to tell, and have a story to tell. So it's this great, I think, interesting, great time that we're kind of in, and I'm glad studios such as Disney, such as Warner, and some of the other ones are starting to stretch themselves now and tell different stories and create different creators the license to tell their story in their way and know that it's going to resonate with a lot of other people outside of themselves. Mr. DeMille has a
Yeah,
question
exactly.
for you. As a native of Africa, how did you feel about the portrayal of the African culture in Black Panther? Would love to hear specific similarities and differences. I've heard a few, but I'd love to hear yours as well. I love to hear yours, David. I've asked that question before, but I would love to hear your answer on it.
Yeah, I think I was expecting that question. I don't know one way or the other. One way or the other.
So
So
tell
I
us,
think
yours, because like I said, I have asked that question, of to a few African guests on, and I've gotten different responses. But I'm curious to hear, from your perspective, what did you feel about the portrayal of it and just the story of it?
yeah, the I think the story of Black Panther really, personally, everything I'm going to say about this is concerning this is personal.
Yeah,
So personally, I feel it really resonated with, Africa as a culture, because bear in mind that as much as you're trying to tell a story, right, a story, maybe you're using a specific culture as your setting, right?
yeah,
As much as trying to tell a story, you would probably not tell the story exactly the same way, right? Exactly the same way that the culture is. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So when Black Panther came out, it came out to represent Africa. So it felt like uh, it felt like the African type of Superman, Batman, and all that. And if you look at the progression of all these things, all these stories, from Superman to Batman and all the superhero stories, as much as they are trying to use a setting, it doesn't really, it's not a it's not a word for word kind of story, right? So it's just a general representation of what certain things look like. So taking Black Panther for example now, Black Panther kind of showed the way Africa is, African culture, a lot of everything you saw in Black Panther, the people, the dance and all that, most of them they exist in Africa, right? So to me, I feel it's something really great. It's something that resonates with a lot of Africans. It resonated with me a lot. I saw a lot of things in Black Panther, but the only thing that I felt was off, I think it's something that a lot of people would also agree with,
hmm
is the language adaptation. You know,
yeah.
the way they Nigerians don't speak English that way.
Yeah, that was. I've heard a few comments like that. It's
No,
just like I said, and plus, the people don't get a lot of people over here don't get that there's a ton of different languages within Africa. And
yes,
like I said, we kind of just see it as maybe like a South African dialect or something like that. And there's just way more than that. So that
oh
was one
God,
kind of comment I heard from one. It was just the 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 dialect was a little off, and
the dialect was off. The way they spoke English, we have, Ghana. The way Ghana speaks English is different from the way Nigerians speak
yeah,
English, and the way a Nigerian would speak English would be different from the way a Kenyan would
yeah,
speak English, and all those things. The way Kenya would speak English it would different from the way South African would speak
yeah,
English.
yeah.
So I think that was a major barrier, a major problem in the film.
Yeah, yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
I've heard that from several several people that it was more the language thing that of just the way they
Yeah.
talked and spoke English and stuff, but which I think is well, I'll give a testament, to the director because he did go above and beyond with really trying to make it as authentic to the story within the scope of the Black Panther ethos the best that he could. But I think that's a great case for, like I said, how you really start to embrace creatives within their natural state, telling their story, you know, their own way, so that, like I said, we can still understand it, we can still get it, but it's not anything that's not foreign or disrespectful to the people that the story is about, for the most part. So it is funny you said that, but yeah, that kind of goes along the theme of what everybody else is
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah, I
saying.
think it also has to do with the place of doing proper research, and proper finding. If you're doing something that has to do with culture, you want to make sure that if not 100%, you want to get at least a 50 or, you know, worse, 40%,
Yeah.
of what the culture represents. So I feel I'm still going to use the Iwaju as an example, right? Those people nailed it. Disney, Kuga, they nailed the dialect, you know.
Mm.
That's the way people in Lagos, Nigeria will say English.
So a big
You
plug
know,
for Disney and Kugali for sure. But
no,
like
no.
I said,
They nailed it. They
obviously
nailed
that's
it. Yeah.
working with a studio there that really, like I said,
Yes.
hey, we don't speak English, like the dialect is not right. So we know the dialect and we can and make it more authentic. And that's, like I said, where the beauty of having more truer stories kind of come into play. Regardless of whether it's Africa or whether it's Spanish or whether it's, Asian, different dialects. Like I said, it's, you want to have that authenticity that's still going to translate
Yeah.
over. And it looks like a very, like I said, I've seen a couple of shorts for it. It looks really, really good. So I'm looking forward to Iwaju coming out for sure. Mr. Antoine, I have
Yeah.
to put this
I
up.
think mhm.
That's why I want to get out of this damn country and go back to Africa. I'm tired of these MFs over there. Antoine is like, Antoine is a straight mug. I tell you, I appreciate him so much, for sure. What are the kind of stories that one you enjoy watching? Obviously, with Kugali, it was kind of a futurism type of, Afrocentric story. Um, you see it a lot. What are the stories that you kind of enjoy watching, and are the stories that you would love to tell?
Yeah, for me, I really love science fictions, sci-fi. I love sci-fi a lot. And as much as weird as this might seem, I love horror. I love horror stories,
Okay.
scary stories. I love action stories a lot, right?
And I
So
hope to see more of
films
those.
like
Really, I do, and I keep getting
yeah,
reminded of. Like I said, I have to say this, but it always reminds me. You know, one. It was, this joke Richard Pryor used to tell. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with, Richard Pryor, the comedian over there,
and
but he used to tell this joke about, sci-fi movies and blacks being in sci-fi. It's like, well, white folks don't plan on us being in the future because we don't have any sci-fi. We love sci-fi. We love horror. I
yeah,
mean, we may approach it a little differently, but I think, like I
yes,
said,
yes.
I'm excited about just, the stories that are coming up, whether they're futuristic, whether they're horror, and having
Mm.
black characters and characters of color in there because we're not normally or haven't been for a while. It's getting better now.
Mm. Yeah, I think I also like the adaptation of futurism in Iwaju too, because I think it's one of those places where African, content creators are excelling a lot these days, doing a lot of Afro-futurism kind of stories,
Yeah,
the house, the world building and all that. I think it's a place where Africans are really excelling a lot these days. They are, putting a lot of work. Because trust me, it is very hard to do futuristic things, futuristic stories. It is very, very hard because then you're trying to make stories that don't exist in this period and at the same time make them really believable and make them in such a way that it is people can resonate with it, people can relate with whatever is going on in that environment. So you're trying to if they feel like prophets to me because they're seeing the future and they're
yeah.
trying to bring the future into the present. So it's really a big one for Africa. It's a really big plus, right? And yeah, apart from that, one other thing I feel like I want to really see a lot in the CG space in Africa is more of what do you call this genre? Forgotten. Things like what's the name of this movie? Avatar.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Things like, yeah, things, stories like Avatar. I think those are other places we need to explore a lot more as in Africa. We don't really have much of that in Africa. So I feel we have stories that resonate with that kind of genre. We
Yeah.
have a lot of adventure stories like that. That if we execute and execute it well enough, it's going to be really great. It's going to be really, really good. So if we can do stuff like that, we are already doing futurism, futuristic stuff, futuristic stories. It looks good. It's really good. Like if we're moving further, we've always been known for dramas. We do a lot of drama, even in animation, we do a lot of dramas. So if we see more of, futuristic stories and other fantasy stories. Yeah, that was what I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
Do more fantastic kind of stories than futuristic stories. I think would really move a lot more,
Yeah.
and it would really tell on the way we execute our project here.
Yeah. And I would like
Yeah,
to ask
yeah.
you about this. And I don't know if you've seen this movie, but it really I
Okay.
watched it. It was a great sci-fi movie. Um, but it really kind of brought home kind of the the narrative of apartheid was District 9. And I know Neil Blomkamp, who
District 9.
directed it, is from, I think he's from South Africa. Um,
Yeah,
but
District
he
9.
really, I thought it was a really ingenious way of talking about apartheid in kind of a sci-fi way. Did you see the movie, and what was your thoughts on that? As you, if you saw it.
I'm not sure if I can remember the movie correctly, but I remember I saw it. I
Well, it
saw it
was
one
about
time, and I
aliens.
can't remember.
Yeah, it was really the aliens were the ones that were kind of put in these um, shanty type shanty towns and really looked down on, and kind of put in this kind of apartheid situation. Um, like I said, if you haven't seen District 9, I would suggest watching it because it is a great for the budget,
Okay.
because it was a really low budget compared to most movies. But it was so well
Yeah.
done. The effects were well done. And they've got a couple of behind the
Okay.
scenes of how they shot things and did things and how they had to do things on a budget to really make it a great movie. And like I
Yeah.
said, it was told in this kind of futuristic sci-fi way. You know,
Okay. I'm
uh,
not sure if I've seen District 9, but I can't remember. I can't really remember the storyline well. But I'm sure I've
yeah,
seen it.
I think, like I
I'm
said,
sure
the
I've seen
aliens
it.
came. Like I said, they had come to South Africa, and they ended up, like I said, getting treated bad, and just like I said,
Oh,
it was a great
oh,
movie. And kind of like the effects. Mr. Antoine here, he's got a comment because he's a visual effects person, so Uh,
okay.
yeah, that's a decent Antoine. You boy, I tell you, you're a tough nut to crack, man. But I can appreciate that. It was a decent movie, and like I said, for
Yeah.
the budget that, because it was allowed, it definitely wasn't one of those big budget movies. I thought the effects were really well done. Robbie, you're in here. You're a VFX producer. I would love to hear your comments on the effects as well, um, which is a very hard thing to do on a limited budget. Really getting creative about stuff. Um, Mr. Jeff, when you say like Avatar, do you mean the nature ecology centric storylines? Is that what you're meaning, or when you say you want to see like more movies of Avatar style
I was just talking about the genre which is fantasy
fantasy?
related. Yeah, so if if Africans do, more of fantasy, it's not necessarily a story that it might be fiction.
Yeah,
It might be things that never existed, things that you just thought about, fictional stories will do a lot. But as long as they are fantasy, it will go a long way. So I'm just talking about the genre of the story, yes.
Yeah,
And one thing though, Africans are very good at, you know, managing budgets. We can use small budgets to create really big films.
you get a lot out of nothing. I think blacks are like that in general. We were like that here in the States. We made a lot of stuff out of nothing. So I think that's just, I
Mm.
won't say it's strictly a black thing, but yeah, we have to we have to make a lot of stuff out of nothing. So for sure, Mr. Franklin, he liked it. District 9 was really amazing. Like I said, I am not a you know, uh, VFX producer like Robbie is or anything like that. So picking out a lot of the fine minutiae of things is definitely a skill level. But on a kind of a macro level, like I said, I thought the effects were really good, and it was a really good entertaining movie, um, and really kind of thought provoking in its own way. Or maybe some people didn't kind of they more thought about the fantasy of it and just the sci-fi of it rather than the
Okay.
correlation. It was an obvious thing. I mean, I don't think anybody could really walk out of it and not know that it's a, a, a direct kind of response to apartheid in correlation with apartheid. So you'd have to be really not knowing what apartheid was and what happened to really walk out of there without seeing the correlation of the two. But I thought it was a great movie. Like I said, but I think a lot of movies that are people think are bad. I thought Green Lantern was pretty good, and most people hated Green Lantern. So what do I know?
I'm not sure. No.
Like I said, it was an entertaining movie. Now, obviously, it could have been a. I think the story was, really weak. It could have been a whole lot better, but what do I know? I guess that's why I'm not a movie producer. Yeah, I agree with David. Fantasy is something we need to see more of from Africa. Africa has a very rich, unexplored mythology, and that can be tapped into. Definitely, for sure. I'm, like I said, I think it's got great potential, and that's why I'm excited about the creators that are starting to come out of Africa that I have made friends with and connected with. Um, and it's funny. I was just checking out a post of hers on LinkedIn today, and she was on the show a couple of years ago. Esther uh, is a great stop motion. She does a lot of great stop motion animation, and I think she's out of Lagos as well. But just don't just there's so many mediums that could be used to tell such great stories. That's what I'm really excited about. Antoine, what do you got to say now? What about the movie The Beast with Idris Elba? I'm curious what David Davies thought about the film if he had seen it, The Beast. I don't think I've seen that one.
The Beast. No, I haven't
Yeah, I
seen The
don't think I've
Beast.
seen
I've not
that
seen
one.
it.
Yeah, Idris Elba. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that
The
one,
Yes.
Antoine.
Not sure.
Eves. Um, for you, what has working in, especially with Ant Hill, what has that kind of taught you, and how do you feel like your skill level has progressed? And we're going to take a look at some of his work in a minute here, but how do you feel like your skill level has progressed, since you initially started getting into this? Like I said, you're still fairly young in kind of the space. Um, has gone and what has Anthill kind of taught you?
A lot, a lot. You know, I feel, and that was one of the things I was talking about, when I talked about collaboration or working with people, because it's a thing where you'd learn a lot more, you'll be pushed to do a lot more research compared to if you're, a hobbyist.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing things on your own, you always want to do things when you're ready to do them, right? But working in a studio, working in an environment filled with creatives, you'd always be pushed to do more, right? Which I think is something Anthill has really done because we are always pushing out content, creating a lot of stuff. Plus, in Anthill, I work both in VFX and animation. So, working with these two departments, it has felt like a lot of, it has given me a lot of room to think really, really high, more than what I would do on a normal day, or what I would do if I was, just a soloist, just working on my own.
Hmm.
So I feel that kind of thing really helps. It has really helped me. Plus the fact that I am a really self-driven person, right? So, you know, if a normal person would go 1 mile, I would want to go like 5, 6, 7 miles, because I'm really curious. I want to know what is this doing here? How, if I do this way, what is gonna happen? Other ways to make things work faster or make things work better for, the workflow and all that. So it has really helped me. All these combined, they've really helped in, you know, progressing, in making me progress a lot more and
Yeah.
a lot faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. That's like I said, while you can, learn on your own and kind of pick up things on your own, being in a studio environment, being around other creatives helps to push your skill level even even more, because you're learning so much
Yeah.
more and really honing your craft and
Yeah.
your
There
skill.
was there was a particular time when we were working on a project in the studio, and I had a task, you know, I had a task to, I've forgotten what the task was, but I needed to learn two new softwares.
Mm,
I needed to learn, okay, yes, I was supposed to create this fantastical kind of uh, dress. It's a prop dress. So I
yeah.
was supposed to create that kind of fantasy kind of dress. And I felt like the deadline was really near. So, and I needed to meet deadline. I needed to meet the deadline, but I was thinking, instead of modeling this thing from, box modeling it, why not just learn Marvelous Designer
Mm,
and, sew the cloth there and maybe just do some corrections and, give it to whoever is going to do the simulation and all that. And that was really fast. It was very, very, very fast. So from there, I started learning other software. So those are kind of things that working in a studio environment will teach you. Because if I had stayed on my own, definitely I would have learned Marvelous Designer, but it would take me a lot more time.
yeah. Yeah. When your back's
Yeah.
against the wall for a deadline, that's a whole different that's a whole different can of worms there.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, like I said, and as a creator, we're often learning a bunch of different softwares, doing a bunch of different things. What was kind of the most challenging software for you to kind of, you know, get through? I mean, they're all challenging in their own way. And like I said, especially up against the deadline. But just what was that one software? It's like, geez, it's just, because like I said, my thing is, Maya. I mean, it'd be different if I was in a studio having to force to learn Maya type of thing. But
Yeah.
Maya is a pretty deep program when it comes to animation and my and software. So for you, what was there any one particular software that was just challenging to get through?
Um, I'm trying to think about it.
Because I
I'm
know there
not
was a
I'm not
lot.
really
Like I said, even
sure.
Marvelous Designer is a
Yeah.
lot.
It's really a lot. I'm not really sure if I had that, a lot of difficulties learning softwares because ZBrush, I learned ZBrush in under 3 days. I
Really?
started using ZBrush, yeah, under 3 days. So I think for me, it was XGen in Maya.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was something that took me a lot more time to learn. because man,
Maya is a
my
deep
PC
yeah,
crashed a
Maya is
lot.
a deep program. It really is. I mean, obviously it's industry standard,
Yeah,
when it comes to it. But yeah, Maya can definitely, really discourage an artist sitting
you
down trying
can,
to learn
you
it for
can,
sure. Mr.
yeah,
Jeff,
you can.
so true. All software is challenging, for my own, for his own ass. Oh, you sound like my sister there, Jeff. She doesn't want to learn technology. She says she's too old to learn stuff. So it's like, oh man. But obviously, some software is better than others and more easier, for others. Because, like I said, I don't know for you creators or animators out there if you remember Softimage. Um, that was what I kind of started on. And it was kind of comparable to, I guess you could compare it to Maya. It was a really, and that's what they
Okay.
use. That's what they used to do the T Rexes and animate the T Rexes in Jurassic Park, which was why I was so excited to sit down and learn it. But then when they brought all the manuals out and all the
Oh,
tools, I was like, man, this is a lot here, man. So,
hmm. I can imagine.
oh man,
I,
Mr.
I,
Mr. Antoine. Maya is not hard to learn. Houdini, yeah, I hear Houdini is another one that is really
oh
hard
yes.
for learning. And I
Yes.
guess
I think
most
I have
artists,
Houdini.
yeah, and I
I have
guess
Houdini in my timetable that I
yeah,
want to learn.
Houdini,
But I'm
yeah,
not sure if yeah.
and I guess most artists would probably say even in those tools, they only use a handful of tools within those tools. So I think, like I said, with
Yes.
me, you just get overwhelmed by all the buttons and things that you see that you could do and could use, but you really, once you get down and learn it and really start to do what it is that you're doing, whether it's modeling, whether it's animating, you're only using a handful of tools and you're not really using all the tools that are in it. Have you touched or jumped into Unreal?
Yes, yes. I use Unreal almost every day.
Okay.
Yes. I use Unreal almost every day. Unreal is one of those tools I'm not sure I'll ever leave anymore. Because it's a very powerful tool. I use Unreal for look dev and rendering. You know,
Okay.
look dev, lightning and rendering. Yeah, I use it for that. It's a really powerful tool.
It is, and
Yeah,
another free
so,
tool out there for creators. And
yeah.
do you feel like that's a big plus now, in this time that we live in? That we got so many great tools out there, some great ones that are free that are easily available for creators to download and really learn and craft their skill in.
Yeah, as a free software, I think it's a really big plus in the industry, for people that want to create awesome stuffs and, don't really have the, computing power first and also the money,
Yeah,
to purchase other industry standard softwares. So I think Unreal is a very big plus,
yeah,
both in game world and the movie production world too.
yeah.
Because I heard that I think was it Mortal Kombat 1? Is
Mm-hmm.
it 1? Yeah, I think it was Unreal they used for the cinematic.
Okay.
Yeah,
Robbie,
so
if you're still on, you can confirm that or not. Robbie
I
works for
think
uh, Epic
okay.
Software, and obviously the big game Fortnite is done in Unreal. So it is a amazing, like I like to say, Unreal tool, which is why it's a great tool. And I think it's kind of gone obviously beyond what, I guess it initially was. Most people were associated as
Yeah.
a game kind of thing, but now filmmakers are using it for virtual environments and you get that real type of feedback from it. It's obviously expanded way beyond what it started out to be. for sure.
I think Unreal was really smart with that, introducing, giving Unreal the ability to be able to handle film projects. I think it's a very, very smart move because when you look at other industry standard softwares like Maya, 3ds Max and all that, it take a lot of time to render, which
Yeah,
is good. It has
it's not when you're on the deadline,
the
but
no,
or you don't
no,
have a
it's
fast
it's very
computer,
good.
you know.
Yeah. So it's a very good thing, you'd see the result of why it's been slow to
Yeah,
render. But at the same time, with the kind of tool Unreal is right now, if you do your work well, you would hardly know the difference between you using Maya or 3ds Max or using Unreal,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And recent updates has they've really gone far with the software. So I think it's a very smart move, switching from developing the software for just game development and introducing film project
yeah.
capabilities to it. Yeah.
And like I said, that would have been and Robbie, like I said, if you're still in the uh, chat there, I would definitely love to hear kind of your thoughts on it. And I don't know if it was the fact that, you know, or if that was something that they intentionally did, or the fact that just filmmakers got their hands on it and just used the tool in a way that, okay, Unreal saw, wow, filmmakers are using this in this kind of way. Let's lean into that. And I think that's the beauty of tools when they're in the hands of creatives. They may be used in a different way that what creatives might or the software may have initially thought about where they wanted to take the software. So a
Yeah.
filmmaker, like I said, got a hold of it. Wow, I could do virtual environments and get this real time preview of what I'm creating, and bigger filmmakers got a hold of it and started to see they could project this live environment that their actors can interact with and get lighting, that type of thing, that really fueled um Epic to say, okay, well, wow, filmmakers have gotten their hands on this and are using it in such an amazing way. Let's put more things into it that'll enable them to create even more stuff, type of thing. I think Epic
Yeah.
or Unreal has recently put in a lot of stuff for motion designers now. They've got a lot of motion graphics people that are starting to kind of jump into it because they've started to add motion graphics tools and things that are more kind of geared towards the motion designer. So it's those smart uh, kind of companies that kind of, okay, they see the trend of how creatives that really are following the creatives and how they're using their tool and then add
Yeah.
it into it. Mr. Antoine, I
Yeah.
don't know if I want to put this up. Put this up. I hate these stupid game engines. Antoine, I tell you, brother, I definitely got to have you back on, man, for sure. Mr. Franklin. Yeah, Unreal is insane. Unreal is quite old software, actually. Yeah, like I said, I think, like I said, they initially, when you thought of Unreal, you thought of it like Unity, a game engine that was just used for
Yes.
games.
Yes.
But I think as more creatives got their hands on the tool and started using it for whatever it was that they were doing, that's when I think it just kind of opens. I think that's when the software really opens up, when creators get their hands on stuff and use it in a different way than what they initially designed it for. So, um, what's been uh, for you? I always like to ask this question. What's been the best advice that you've been given that's kind of helped, kind of guide you and serve you so far?
Uh, I've had a lot of advices, good and bad, that has always, really shaped me.
I don't
But
think I've ever
trust
asked
me,
somebody what's been the worst advice somebody's ever given you, but
no. I think I see both good and bad advices
uh,
as something that would push me. All right, that's something that would just push me and and keep me going. I don't really see bad advices as this is just personal,
yeah,
it's the way I've trained myself so far. I see good advices, bad advices, and I just pick what is most important in everything and keep moving. Just use it for myself and keep moving. But for me, the best advice I've gotten so far is I think from one very good friend of mine, Shagun Samson. I think it works. Is somebody I respect so much.
mhm,
There was the time we were talking, and he told me for a fact. He said, "Man, you're very good. You're very good at what you're doing. Just keep pushing yourself out there and keep moving, no matter what anybody says." He told me, no matter what anybody says, I should just keep moving, just keep doing my stuff, that people are always, there will always be people that are in need of your services. So the fact that you're not getting as much attention as you want right now, you're not getting as much opportunities as you want right now, is not a is not a factor of whether you're very good at what you do or not. It's just a factor of time,
mhm.
I just told me to just keep moving, keep doing what I do and keep, improving on that. So I think for
Awesome.
me, that's kind of like the one advice that someone has really given me that showed, you know, you know, I just need to keep moving. I'm not doing really bad at what I do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And as always, great advice. Great bombs that are dropped. Appreciate that for sure. Let's take a look. Like I said, because David does some amazing work and does some amazing modeling, and I'm always, like I said, I'm not a ZBrush aficionado, but I have kind of jumped in and played around with it, and definitely love the software. But I'm always impressed with modelers that can really model and have a good knack for modeling. So let's take a quick look at some of David's artwork as we kind of continue on with this. Uh, do you enjoy? Obviously, you said you love the fantastical kind of
Yeah.
sci-fi type of things, um, but when did you kind of notice a kind of big improvement in your modeling, and you could look at it and say, "Okay, this is really good." I really like the way that it came out. How long do you feel like it took you to kind of get to that point?
I think it took me about 1 to 2 years. You know, one thing I take as very very important anytime I work is feedback. All right, so I have, like I said, I have this circle of supporters that anytime I do anything, I try as much as possible to show that,
Yeah,
and these people are professional in the field, big, big shots in the field. They've worked with several studios, so they definitely know what is good and what should be improved in certain areas. So for me, I feel like yeah, it was just 2 years after, 2 years after I started modeling, and there was one time I showed what's the name? Yeah, it was Shagun Samson also. I showed him one of my model, and he was like, "Wow, why aren't you working for Disney yet?" So then I felt like it was a very important time in my life where I just knew, okay, it's not a matter of skill now. It's more about, just sharpening what you have right now. And I feel everybody has to get to that moment where it's not that you stop growing. You
hmm
don't stop growing. You just keep sharpening and keep refining what you have at that moment. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. After I 2 years, the 2 years I spent, learning and relearning was very rigorous because I okay, the main reason, let me tell you the backstory behind that. There was this time about 5, 6 years ago, I met, no, not 6 years ago, that was like 7 years ago. I met with someone. He's also a 3D designer and 3D modeler. I've forgotten. He worked for a particular studio then. He, I met with him online and we started talking, chatting, chatted for a while. And at some point, I asked him, okay, say for instance, I want to do 3D, right? Like how many years do you think I would spend? How many years do you think it would take me to really learn this thing and to be good at it? And guess what he told me? He told me to be as good, just for you to be good enough. It's going to take you up to 10 years. All right. And after he told me that, I felt drawn back a bit, you know. 10 years is a fair enough amount, a number of years that you'd spend, before you're good. Not as a professional now, he was talking about just learning how
Yeah.
to do it. So I felt 10 years is okay, 10 years is good enough, but I don't want to spend 10 years learning something I want to do for the rest of my life. So I thought to myself, okay, I want to take this thing and do it for, you know, about 2, 3 years. Let me see what this thing would get me in 2, 3 years. Let me see how far I can go in that number of years. And trust me, those 3 years, 2 years rather, those 2 years were very, very rigorous because I took a lot of, there were times I wouldn't sleep for, yeah, I think the longest I have stayed without sleeping at all because I was learning. The longest I've stayed without sleeping at all. And when I mean sleeping without sleeping at all, I mean without closing my eyes at all, was 3 days. I spent three
That's
days, 3 straight days.
a long
I
time.
didn't sleep at all. Yeah, 3 days. So those 2 years were very rigorous. After 2 years, I started seeing a lot of progress, progress that I know that if I had taken my time, now I've not done really, really rigorously. It would have taken me longer, way longer to learn those things.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's it for me. Yeah.
Well, obviously, and I'm assuming as a character model, you're doing the UVing and texturing and all of that yourself, working in
Yeah.
substance and
Yeah.
that. And obviously, modeling for games is kind of a different thing than modeling for, say, film. Is there one that you
Yeah.
enjoy more than the other? Because obviously, when you're doing something for games, you got to think polygon count and whether or not it's going to be animatable fast enough. Is there one you enjoy more than the other, or it really doesn't matter? It's just the process of creating something in and of itself.
Yeah. For me, I enjoy working on film projects a lot. And the reason why is because working on film projects for me personally, this is a personal thing now. Working on projects give me more room to explore a lot more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this particular model on the screen was modeled with the mind of game, right? It was modeled with game in mind, right? So all the UVs, the topology and everything were modeled with games in mind, right? But modeling, like I was saying, modeling for films gives me a lot more room to explore things, explore poly count, explore
Yeah,
UVs, explore a lot of things. And I feel like I am kind of a bit restricted when I am modeling for game, which is kind of good too in a lot of ways.
yeah,
Because in that kind of situation, even if you're modeling for film, if I'm modeling for film in for another project, I have that mind, for games, right? So there are certain things that I take from modeling from games and put in modeling for films. There are certain things I take from modeling for films and put in modeling for games. And one of those things is, you can model for film and you definitely pay attention to the topology, but not as much as you pay attention to it when you're modeling for games, right? So imagine you take that kind of mentality in modeling for games and put it in modeling for films. The topology and everything, you make them really good, right? It's going to come out a lot better than you modeling with just the mind of, oh, this thing is just film related. Let me just model the way I would normally model for film. So for
Ah,
me, modeling for films is more interesting, but I also find modeling for games pretty good and helpful too.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Mr.
And I think apart from that, okay,
Antoine,
you
he's
wanted to
always
say
got
something?
nice work. He loves your work though. But he did say
Oh,
here,
thank you.
he did say here, try 30 or 40 years. That's kind of really depressing on my end because I'd be darn near 100 years old. So I appreciate that, Antoine. I really do. As far as learning and growing within your chosen skill set. And I think, like I said, it's an ever growing thing. You're always working to level up your skill set. Even the ones that are at 30 or 40 years, they're always still working to get better, I guess, at what they're doing.
Yes,
It's
yes,
a never ending
exactly.
thing. But
I think
I
another
appreciate
thing
that.
is another thing is working. I also work for, VR projects too.
Yeah,
And I think they are very, very different,
yeah.
you know. And I feel like my brain does a lot of work anytime I'm working on a particular project.
But
Yeah,
that's like you
working
said,
for
that's a
work.
good thing though, because it forces
Yes,
you to
yes,
learn different things and how to get better
yes,
and feed into each other. So that's why I love trying a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
different things as well.
yeah, yeah.
Mr. Antoine. And again, everybody, just jumping in. We've been having a fun. I'm laughing because Antoine there. Antoine is funny as hell. Uh, but we've been
Yeah.
having an amazing conversation with CG artist Davies, talking and sitting down. Um, for you, um, where do you kind of see your career going in the future? Where are you trying to take yourself now even further? Like I said, you're learning a lot, you're refining your skills. Have you looked into the future where you're kind of wanting to go from this point on, the things that you're wanting to get better at this point?
Yeah, for right now, you know, if you based on everything I've said, so far, for me, my professional journey is really progressive. It's always a step after the other, step after the other. And for me right now, what is more important to me is observing the way other people do their things and trying to implement that in whatever I do. Because the end goal for me, the at least right now, what I can see right now, the end goal for me is to go into the CG content creation space. Right? Create. I want to be able to create. I know a lot of that has been going on.
Yeah.
Films like Avatar, films like Batman, Superman, all those things. A lot has been going on, but I want to. There are a lot of Adrian stories that are still not being touched yet. So, and the way we tell stories like that differ, right? And the way we execute them differ. I've seen a lot of executions, both in Africa and other continents. both in African studios and other studios across the world. I've seen the way they execute, stories, execute ideas and all that. So for me, right now is more about learning how to perfectly execute stories, execute ideas, carry ideas from the start to the finish, That's, I think that for now, that's the most important way. And one of the ways I've been trying to do that is collaborating,
Yeah.
right? You know, Currently I'm working on this short CG film. It's still very much in works, but I'm trying as much as possible to take my time on it, so that it's gonna come out really well. So one way I've been doing that is collaborating, like I said, learning from people, talking to people, knowing what they feel about certain ideas, knowing how they would, you know, personally approach certain ideas, and execute them. So right now, I think that's the learning phase I've got into right now, just learning how to perfectly execute ideas. And later on in the future, I hope to execute amazing stories, really, really stories. I really want to get to a point where I can personally direct
Yeah.
CG films.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha. No.
yeah,
Um, and, and you can answer this. Do you, and maybe, or maybe you don't get to this point. Do you ever have those moments where you, especially now, where you get discouraged or get kind of maybe down about the progression of where you're going, or have those moments of doubts and or get discouraged about just what you're doing?
yeah. I think if you're going to judge that, I should get an award for it.
No, we're not gonna judge. We're not gonna judge for it because, like I said, everybody has their own thing, and like I said,
Yeah,
you know, Jeff, if you're still in here, Jeff has said he still has moments of doubt, and he works for Disney. So, I mean, do you ever have these? Like I said, and I guess I don't know. I've come across
yeah, I
very
do.
few that have said they don't, but most say at some point or another they've had these moments. You know.
Yeah, I think for me, mine started when I was a lot younger. When I was still pretty small. You know, like I said, I really didn't get the opportunity to do a lot of things. I couldn't even get comics, when comics were really the happening stuffs. I really couldn't read them because I wasn't exposed to things like that. So coming into the industry, for a long time, it has been a solo journey for me. Right. So there were lots of downtimes, you know, there were lots of discouragement from a lot of people, a lot of discouragement. But I'm still pretty much surprised that I am still in this field right now because if I am to, you know, uh, listen to everything that I've heard, those things are enough to get you depressed and just quit whatever you're doing. So I've had a lot of moments, a lot. And one thing that has helped me a lot is, you know, friends, support groups. People that I can just call and talk to, friends that that would just listen to me talk
Yeah.
and, talk and talk and talk. There were times when I would just pick up my phone, call this person, talk about the industry, talk about, challenges, talk about things like that. And boom, after the call, I'm up again creating something else. You
Yeah.
know, I think things like that they've really, really helped me. So there were times, a lot of times. I think I still had one last month.
And that's why people it's so important to
Yeah,
surround yourself around people that, like I said,
yeah,
are kind of on the same journey and kind of understand, or at least, at the very least, if they're not in that your same space, are really supportive of what you're doing because we will have those moments where, like I said, we just need somebody to kind of help nudge us along and encourage us even more. And Mr. Jeff, he responded all the time, man, all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Oh man, Mr. Antoine, I know you got a quote here. Let me throw you some here. Don't quit. Stay with it. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and
Mm,
that's a great note right
mm,
there, Antoine, for sure. If it
yeah,
was easy, everybody would be doing it, for
we'll
sure.
be doing that. Mm,
And it weeds out the ones that really aren't, like I said, serious about it or serious enough to keep going through those tough times when you do it.
yeah,
Which Antoine goes into why, like I said, hey, when things go wrong, like I said, if I was really, that not into it, I would have quit. With the live streaming, hey, but I love it enough
yeah,
to go
yeah.
through all the stuff that happens, and work to make myself better. So that's really what it's all about, Mr. Jeff. We all need to all call down when we feel that way. He'll never have time for the. Oh man, but hey, like I said, the reason is, like I
Yeah,
said, I want future people that really are watching this and that are really into it. Just know it's not an easy journey, and no one journey is the same. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey is at their own pace, and while, like I said, you use other people's work and journey to kind of gauge it, you don't compare yourself because everybody's journey and everybody's walk is a different walk. Mr. Antoine, Don, you're the best, bro. You are too, bro. Antoine, that's why I got to get you on back on soon, for sure. Uh,
yeah.
and edited Don. Yeah, I tried. Well, like I said, I was thinking about doing it after hours where it's a little less edited, but I try to keep it real here for sure. But I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate the comments. And like I said, this has been an amazing episode. Trust me, we've hit 2 hours. And like I said, it's
Are you
super late.
serious?
Yes.
Are you serious? Two
Yes,
hours?
we have hit
Wow.
we have hit 2 hours here. So while I enjoy the talk, like I said, I could talk and talk and talk about this
Yeah.
space forever. Like I said, I know it's
Mm.
insanely late. It's probably the next day over there, getting close to.
Yeah, yeah, you true. That's right.
So we're going to be. I'm going to be
Wow.
respectful. Definitely, this gives me the opportunity to bring David back on for sure. But again, David, I can't thank you enough, man, for coming on, having this fun
Yeah,
conversation. This was amazing. We had a lot
yeah,
of great engagement, for sure. And I can't thank everybody for kind of sticking with me and sticking through this. Always appreciate everybody's involvement, whether it be you, the viewers, or my friends and guests that come on and make this such a great show. So thank you, David, for coming on. If you could hang out, I know it's late. If you could hang out for just a second while I close this out so I can talk to you afterwards, I would appreciate
yeah.
it. But again,
Okay.
make sure that you hop on over, connect with David, check out some of his work. Like I said, I just showed a fraction of his artwork and stuff, but make sure that you connect with David on his channels. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. Go to his Instagram page, follow him. Check out his ArtStation page. You'll see a lot more great work on there. And I can only expect even better work coming out from this young talent here for sure. Definitely inspires me, as I hope it inspires you as well. But again, everybody, please help me thank again David Davies for coming on and really making this such a fun episode to do. Uh, Hang out for just a second,
Okay.
David,
Okay.
while I close this out here. Everybody, this has been a great episode. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoy. I always enjoy. I love doing this show. If you don't know by now, I love doing this show. I love making the friends that I've made. Antoine, that includes you as well, brother. Thanks again for tuning in as well. Thanks, David. I know he appreciates this as well. I can't thank you enough for joining me again for this last episode of quarter 1 while we take a short hiatus. Definitely appreciate you, the viewers, for always sticking with the show and making it, the show that it is for sure. Mr. Dewan, appreciate you as always, brother, tuning in and checking out and being a great supporter of the show. Mr. Jeff, my brother from another mother, love you, brother. Can't wait to get you back on the show for sure. Man, oh man, oh man, this has been a great episode, and I definitely don't want you to miss out on the next one coming soon. It's going to air in April, I think April, let me see. While we welcome guest, Mr. Anthony Silverstone, creative director at Triggerfish, animation studio that did work on Kugali in Cape Town, South Africa, if I'm not mistaken. He will be on when we come back. But until then, I will definitely be trying to throw out some, color of motion stuff because I don't want you to go through color of motion withdrawals. So I will be throwing out some little shorts and teasers and stuff during the hiatus. But man, thank you, everybody, for really, being a part of this show and making it such a great resource for other creatives out there. Thank you for stopping by, giving me a little bit of your time. I didn't mean to. I did mean to take up 2 hours of your time. But I appreciate you as always stopping by. I try and make this a fun show, an informative show. And like I said, as I always say, I cannot do it without you, the viewers, and I certainly cannot do it without my friends coming on the show and really sharing their thoughts and their journey in the industry. I know, like I said, it helps you because I'm learning and really growing and getting inspired right along with you. So with that, I won't say my typical saying of tuning in next week, same bat time, same bat channel, but while we are on this short hiatus, definitely everybody be safe. I will see you in a few weeks with our new episode, starting off our second quarter of season 4. Can't believe it. 4 years doing this show so far. And it's been one hell of a ride. And like I said, I've appreciated all of you being along, coming along with me on this. So with that, I will say I will see you in a few weeks, same bat time, same bat channel. Everybody have a great weekend and have an amazing week. Cheers, everybody.